Hello and welcome to the overview on working with the Squish object map. Today we're going to go over some of the details of the object map and show you some of its features and how they work. So what I have open right now is a test suite. That's just a blank test suite at this point. I can always reach my object map by going to the object map button. And at this point it's blank. I haven't worked with any objects, I haven't recorded any tests, so it does not have any entries. As I begin recording and working with objects, that's how the object map is populated. So I'll click record, and I can begin working with some different objects by simply interacting with the application. So that's enough to get us a few basics into our object map. We'll click stop on the recording, and I have my script. Now, the entries in my object map are now related to what I've done in my recording. Any of these symbolic names, if I right-click on them from my script and select Open Symbolic Name, that's going to open up that reference in my object map. Let's create a little more room here. So in our object map, we now have some different entries. For example, if we look at the File menu, we can see how we are finding that file menu. We have the symbolic name, which appears by default in our script, and then we have the real name, the combination of properties that help us identify that object. So you can see from the combination of properties that you can have here equals, a constant, or you can use a wildcard or a regular expression. Think about working with a basic Microsoft Word document. You rename that document, the title window changes. You can see here, similar with this address book. Depending on the name of the address book, it will be unnamed, it will be the name of the address book. However, it's the same object. How do we handle objects like that? Again, instead of having an equal sign or a constant, you can then change this to use a wildcard or a regular expression in its value to be able to handle such changes. Now, no matter what the name of the address book is, the address book that we have open, this particular object will be able to be used, this reference. Now, how can I make sure that what I've just done is going to work? That's one of the important aspects, right? I've just made a change. I don't have to make changes at my test level because the symbolic name remains the same, but I want to make sure that that's going to work. One way would be simply rerunning your script. Does it work? We'll try it that way first. Okay, everything passed. But how can I make sure it's finding the object that I want without having to run a test? Maybe that test would be extremely long. With my object map open, I can launch the application using Launch AWT, or I can also come to a breakpoint by simply setting a breakpoint in my script and run to that line. So we'll first begin by using the Launch AWT. That launches my application, and now let's move some things around here. I use a different resolution for demos than what you would typically work with when working independently on your computer to help you see the text. So you have to bear with me as I move some things around. So what we have now is our object map, and we have our application. And we want to make sure that the change that we made using this wildcard did not have a negative impact on our ability to find the object. So let's first check to make sure that object exists. It says it doesn't exist. Now remember, how did I get to that unnamed window? This has address book dash in it versus the main window that just has address book. So if I'd like to make that also compatible together with the unnamed versus main window, I would need to then remove that dash. But there are some differences between the main window when I have an address book open and when I don't. So I don't want to go that far. What I'll do now is get to the point where I do have an address book open. We'll make sure the one with unnamed still works. Okay, it works. It's able to find it. Now, what is it finding? If you select Highlight Object, it's going to outline the object that you have selected in the object map to confirm visually that you are highlighting or identifying the same object that you intend to have. Now, what if we open up an address book with a different name? Another great way to test that this is still working. So here I have two different address books. So we have an address book open. You'll notice this title bar changes to make sure we can still find that object. And to show you the check mark moved, let's clear this off here. And then we're going to highlight the object. So it is still able to find that object. The edit menu is a menu that's hidden unless you have it clicked. So it can't find that object because as soon as I click over here, that object's hidden again. So that's why that one is appearing red. Now, other things that we can do besides checking the existence and highlighting an object, as well as changing how these objects are found, you can also rename the symbolic name. Now, the symbolic name is what's most often used in your test script. So if you're going to rename that, it's best to do that early because then your finding and replacing in your existing test cases is going to be minimized, which the object map is the whole reason for avoiding finding and replacing. So if we take a look, we have the symbolic name and the real name. What if we wanted to use the real name from a script? By simply right-clicking on this symbolic name and selecting Copy Real Name, we can now use that real name in the script. So we'll use this Edit menu. Moving this over more. So we have here the Edit menu, right? And let's say that instead of using the symbolic name, we want to use the real name. Remember, I copied that, so I'll simply paste it now. So you can see the real name, when it displays from your test script, is a combination of those properties which appear in your object map. Now, why use the real name from a script versus the symbolic name? Remember, the symbolic names provide a nice way for you to have the object map, a central repository for making updates to your object references. However, when working with real names, you typically do that in a scenario where a portion of that real name or multiple portions of that real name will become a parameter or a variable in your script that you're then passing in at runtime. For example, if each time I selected File New or Edit Add, I wanted to be able to simply have a function instead of having to have these activate items for the specific menu bars every time I interact with a menu in my application, I would do that using the real name. Let's do that now. So now what I'll have, oops, wrong shortcut, is I want to select File New or whatever my combination is. So I'm going to take these two guys here. And then I want to replace this one will be fine because if you look at it, Q menu bar will open it in the object map. And you can see that on Q menu bar, it's not impacted by any changes in the title of the window. It's not impacted by what file menu you're selecting. Whatever you're selecting is driven more by this right here. So we'll want a variable for that one. We'll call this one menu and replace it here with menu. Now for this one, however, instead of having the File menu, the Edit menu, in all different places, we're going to want to pass in that value. So right-click, open Symbolic name, and we're going to want to copy its real name. Back in our script now, we can replace this with the real name. And instead of having file here, what we're going to want to do is have a variable, and the variable will be here, menu. Now at the end, this new button is going to be the menu item that we select. So that'll be our other parameter up here. So now what we have is the ability to use any menu combination without having to have these repeated lines each time, by simply using one portion from the object map and the other portion we collected from the object map, getting that object's real name and renaming it. Now from here, what we're able to do is simply call, instead of having this line, and from there we can use edit, add, etc. in the other ones as well, but let's go with the first one here. And we'll run this test. Before we run it, we should stop the application that's already running, as this script is launching the application. And it goes very quickly. Here, let's put in some snooze statements so that you can see. So that you can see it happening. And there, it's running. Now, other things that you can do with the object map. Let's run to a breakpoint in our script. And I forgot to take the snooze statements out, so it is running a little slower. When you reach a breakpoint in your script, much like when you're creating a verification point, you have access to the application objects tree. From there, you can manually navigate this tree, or you can use the pick tool. That highlighting feature is also available, much as we used from the object map directly, so that when we select an object in the application objects tree, it highlights that corresponding object if we have this toggled on. What I'm going to do is go out and select an object, this cancel button, for example. I'm returned then back to Squish, where I can see that object highlighted and its properties. If I'm manually scripting and I didn't want to record interacting with that object, but I do want that object in my object map, there's some options. I can right-click and add this object to my object map. The easiest way to then find that object in the object map that I've just added, right-click and copy its symbolic name. Now coming over to our object map, if I simply paste that value in, it will take me directly to the object that I just added in the object map. And I can see how that object's being found. I have the ability to manually add new objects, which can be done. It's often quite rare to do that manually, as you're introducing more human error than going out and selecting an object and maybe modifying it from there. So again, we're right-clicking on the object that we've selected from the application object tree and selecting Add to object map. With that added, checking existence or highlighting that object again, much as it was when we were working from, again, I'm dealing with the different resolution real estate here. When we were working from the script, and now we're working directly from the object map here, from debug mode, check existence, highlight object. It's going to then highlight that object. Here, we'll do it this way. Now being in debug mode, here we can resume our script if we'd like, or simply click stop. I also have the ability to replace the object's real name. So in the event you're running a script and the object has changed, whether you're using the object not found dialog to update the object's real name or using this other more manual method, you can replace the object's real name. So just as I've gone out and selected an object, for that particular object, I can right-click and copy that object's real name. With that object's real name in my clipboard, if I then select that object in my object map, I can replace that object's real name. So if there's a difference between the object map entry and its real name versus the new object or the updated object, maybe with a new release, and that real name, it will then update the real name within the object map. Another way that you might do that, instead of taking this more manual approach, would be to run the test, and as you run the test from the IDE, if you encounter an issue where the object cannot be found, the object not found dialog appears. So to do that, let's first take a look. We'll do this with the for-name object. We'll open its symbolic name, and what I'm going to do at this point is break this particular field's reference. So by doing that, I'm simply going to change, let's see, line edits from line edit. So now it's not going to be able to find that object. Check existence, it can't find it, right? So now when we run this test, we'll take out our breakpoint, stop the debugger, and it's going to try to find that object. Now remember, using our wait for object statements, it's automatically going to wait 20,000 milliseconds or 20 seconds to try to find that object, to give that object a chance to appear. When it doesn't find that object, and you're running this from the IDE, not unmanned, unmanned would simply result in the error being returned, it's going to show you an object not found dialog. Now we have a separate video on working with the object not found dialog, but for the basics here, you can see the existing value in the object map as well as the error that would have appeared in the results. You can go out and select Pick New Object. You can then select that object, and you can see the differences between the object that exists in the object map and the new object. So should your object change, this would be another way to update that object in the object map instead of using replace real name. When you retry, if it fixes that or resolves that conflict, then the object map is automatically updated with the new value. If it doesn't, it will return you back to this dialog where you can begin throwing an error, debugging, or trying with a new object again. So now if we go and take a look, our object map entry has been updated again. Now where is this object map stored, and what is the level at which it's shared? So your object map is stored locally with the test suite by default. So if we go to our test suite settings and scroll down, we can see the object map and the object.map file. If we click Browse, that will take us to where our test suite is, and you can see that file. Now this file is global to the test suite. However, if you wanted to share an object map between test suites, it would simply be a matter of browsing to the object map file that you'd like to share and selecting that file instead of the default object map file for a given test suite. Thank you for watching this brief tutorial on working with the object map. Download an evaluation at froglogic.com/evaluate and see our other resources at froglogic.com/resources. Thank you for watching.